Bless them. Absolutely Matsuyan.
What time is it, by the way?
Oh, hey! What time is it?
Time for the day drink!
Hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hey, I want to announce that this is the Iker for bringing of Mashiach.
Amen.
We want Mashiach now. Now, the story for tonight, and I only have half of the story here, so we're going to do our best. The previous Rebbe told a story about the Baal Shem Tov, that one Purim, the Baal Shem Tov announced that it was a pregnant year. A pregnant year means a year where there's 13 months, where there's 2 months of Adar. And after that, after that gathering, he asked 2 of his Hasidim to travel to the city of Liazna, to Rabbi Baruch and his wife Rivka, and bless them on the birth of their son. She was pregnant 4 months already. And that son would be born on Chai Elul, which was the birthday of the Baal Shem Tov. And the Baal Shem Tov said in that Farbrengen, that on Purim, the Jewish people were agreed to give away their soul rather than give up their connection to Hashem, rather than give up the fact that they're Jewish. The question is, every holiday is a new revelation of the original holiday. So the question is, how is it possible to say, here in America, that now we are able to achieve the level of Mordechai the Jew, and Queen Esther, who were ready to give away their soul, and not just Mordecai the Jew. The whole Jewish people, were 22,000 children, went out in public to learn Torah, and they put their lives on the line. And how can we say that now in our days of America, we are able to accomplish and realize that same level? Thank you. And how is that connected to the birth of the Alter Rebbe? The fact that every day and every holiday, the Jewish people have the ability to reveal anew what happened on that day, and what it has to do with the birth of the Alter Rebbe is that the Alter Rebbe had to undergo hardships and deprivation of prison with self-sacrifice. And when he went through that, the heavenly court ruled that in the merit of that self-sacrifice, the Torah of Hasidus was established. And the Torah of Hasidus is basically the essence of the Jewish soul and how it's connected to God. And the Torah of Hasidus reveals that. And the Alter Rebbe, through his giving away his soul, through his Mesiras Nefesh, was able to reveal that. And with that self-sacrifice of the Alter Rebbe, he cleared the way so that we can follow the straight path that he prepared. Even though we're not on a level like him, and we're not on a level like Mordecai and Esther, nevertheless, the Alter Rebbe cleared the way that we're able to follow in his footsteps. And by fulfilling the whole Torah with fear of heaven and practicing good emotional attributes, all of those who are tied to the Alter Rebbe, that yesterday was his birthday, by the way, and go in his footsteps, will have the upper hand. It's the birthday of the Baal Shem Tov and the birthday of the Alter Rebbe.
Interesting.
For a soul dwelling under Hashem's glorious throne to descend into a physical body, the body needs to go through stages of embryonic development, whether 7 months or 9 months or 12 months, as ever the case may be. And during that process, the body will grow with all of its 248 limbs and 365 nerves and blood vessels. And at the same time, the soul will move from its pristine spiritual state, descending through various stages, until it is completely engulfed and settled in the body, like the Torah said, he breathes my soul into me. And that's what the Baal Shem Tov said. This soul of the Alter Rebbe, this is a pregnant year, and there's a new soul coming down. And that was the soul of the Alter Rebbe. And when the new soul of the Alter Rebbe was going through its changes and stages of development, the whole world was in an embryonic state and needed to develop in order to receive that general soul of the Alter Rebbe. Just like the body has to develop to receive the soul of a Jew. And this explains that Torah which is delivered by the Baal Shem Tov on that Purim, and why he noted that the year was a pregnant year. Because this new soul, the Alter Rebbe, had to come into the world. At that time, the world was in a state of pregnancy on 2 levels. The embryonic state of the new soul, which was needed to illuminate the world with the light of the inner teachings of Torah, It's not a joke. The Alter Rebbe came here and he was able to accomplish that the world was illuminated with the inner teachings of the Torah. And the world was in an embryonic state in preparation for receiving the revelation of that soul. Our Rebbe says there are those who think mistakenly that it's not their job to teach Chassidus. They say, I have not perfected myself. And if I'm not ready, if I'm not perfected, how much more so a person who knows even less than me? Therefore, we say to him, you're not the first to tread this path. The way has been prepared for you, the way of the King of the world, for the spreading out of the inner level of Torah. So if you know Aleph and Beis, teach your friend Aleph. We want Mashiach now. And here's the mischievous friend, Marvin. Hi, Marvin. Marvin, you've been accomplishing your mischief lately?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Marvin, what's going to happen on Rosh Hashanah? We're going to blow the shofar.
Well,
What's going to be then?
I guess I'll have to do teshuva or something.
Not only that, Marvin. Not only that, we're going to blow the shofar tomorrow.
Oh, boy. Oh,
And
boy.
what are you going to think that it's Rosh Hashanah tomorrow?
Yeah, they were blowing it today, too. It was making me nervous. I got a question.
Yeah.
You're saying that everybody should be teaching Chassidus.
Yeah.
Well, how about a guy like me, the old and foolish king, the evil inclination, me? Should I be teaching people Chassidus too?
You do it without trying.
Oh boy. These are special times, huh?
And
Oh, the
that's why-
times, they are a-changin'.
Imagine Marvin. Let me ask you a question. Here you are, joining us on Gezintahait Street.
Yep. Oh boy.
Isn't that by itself very strange?
I knew you guys were trouble. How about a joke song?
Okay. And the joke song for tonight, Marvin, is going to be your tshuva song.
All right.
You ready?
No more than a second.
Okay. He heard the word tshuva and he ran out of the room.
Yeah.
You ready?
Right.
Okay. Hagmanish China,
Hagmanish China,
Freight Marin, Tipping,
Freight Marin, too.
That's why I'm out of singing.
That's why I'm out singing.
The Freight Marin, Tipping, Can I know reloading? Baby's got a new pair of shoes.
Baby's got a new pair of shoes.
That's why I'm out of singing.
That's why I'm out singing.
My Freight Marin, Tipping. Now you and me, baby.
Now you and me, baby.
We both got nothing to lose.
We both got nothing to lose.
Why don't you come and join me?
Why don't you come and join me?
Singing my Freight Marin. And Mr. Tambourine Man,
Mr. Tambourine Man,
you're singing in Yiddish. Why don't you come and join me?
why don't you come and join me?
Singing my Freight Marin. Now come on, children,
Now come on, children,
we're gonna have some fun.
we're gonna have some fun.
You ain't seen nothing.
Only one.
Tell me
How
how
long
do I have to wait?
do we
Can I get my Mashiach now? We're getting there. Another 2.5 minutes for she has going to be here. Now, do that again, mate. Yesterday
That's going to come right now.
was the great illuminated day of the 18th day of the month of Elul. It was the birthday of the Baal Shem Tov and the birthday of the Alter Rebbe. The Baal Shem Tov was the initiator of the general Hasidus, and the Alter Rebbe was the initiator of the Chabad Hasidus. And to understand the importance of this great day in our generation, and to our service that's coming up in the days of awe, first, we have to understand what will unfold on the birthday of the world. The birthday of the world is Rosh Hashanah, what they call the Jewish New Year. Hashem is a living God. It's not just some creator who's far away and outside and not connected with us. He's a God who participates and receives delight from our service. There's a well-known saying of the sages that a person is more satisfied with one portion of his own that he earns than he is with 9 portions from his friend. But connected with that sage psychology, it says that when he accomplishes acquiring the 1 portion of his own, he automatically acquires the 9 portions of his friend. Which is a very puzzling thing. How does he acquire the 9 portions of his friend when he acquires his own? So I thought about it a little bit. And the idea that I came up with, I was wondering if this one that we're talking about, who is happy with 1 portion of his own, is really Hashem. When does he acquire his 1 portion? When we fulfill his desire by making him our king on Rosh Hashanah. Through that coronation, which is Hashem's own portion, the head on Rosh Hashanah, and subsequently the whole supernal man, the other 9 from his friend, is delighted and involved in being our king. Not just he's the master of the world, he's the king of the world. And the metaphor of that will be from Rabbi Altai Oliver Shalom told Mr. Krieger that it's like a store owner who wants to sell the store. He's not into it at all, but he keeps it going because he wants to sell it, so he doesn't want it just to fall down. So he keeps the store going, but he's not really involved and interested in it. But the minute his son decides he wants to take over the store, now the store owner is completely interested and involved. So too with us. When we make Hashem our king, now he becomes interested and involved in the world. There are 2 structures in Rosh Hashanah. There's the world, the new year, and there's the coronation of Hashem as our king. And the metaphor for both dynamics is an earthly person, is us. We are the metaphor for the new world that's renewed on Rosh Hashanah, and the coronation of Hashem. And that earthly person is not only the metaphor, he's incorporated into the action. It's not just a metaphor. He's unified with both dynamics, with the world and the coronation of God. Through drawing down. How? Because we draw down the new revelation of godly light into the world for the new year. And the yearly recoronation of Hashem as our king, which was first accomplished by the first man on his birthday, the first Rosh Hashanah, the day he was created, when he accepted Hashem as his king, and he had all the animals and creations also accept Hashem as their king. Rosh Hashanah is called the head of the year. It's not called the beginning of the year. Rosh means head. Hashanah means of the year. So Rosh Hashanah, the first day of the year, is like the head of a body of a person. And the head of a body has two aspects. It controls all the limbs. They listen to the desire of the brain of the head. How the hands and feet and all the limbs move is through the leadership of the brain. Like a leader of people who directs and they respond. That's one aspect of how the brain is in, how the head is in control, and Rosh Hashanah is the head of the year. And that brain of Rosh Hashanah then is in control of the whole year. And the second aspect, all the limbs are included in the head. It is their fundament, because from it, from the head, is drawn the light and the life of each particular limb and organ. How? It's drawn down through the nerves, through the nervous system that branch from the brain to the particular limb, which brings them the power to feel and to move. So certainly the life of each limb is included and hidden in the head of a person and goes out from the head to be revealed from its hidden state into the separate limbs. That's the reason why the head is the leader of the limbs. So too Rosh Hashanah, which is the head of the year, the limbs of the year, which is what becomes accomplished, and the blessings that come down for the year, come from the head of the year. Similar to the head of a person, which is a microcosm for a whole world, a person's whole universe, so too from this head of the year, from Rosh Hashanah, branches off how the soul of the year enlivens the whole year. In the microcosmic universe, in a person, each of these two aspects of the head depend on each other, because the limbs receive their spiritual flow from the head. Therefore, they respond to the instructions of the head, because that's where they get their life from. Similarly, in Rosh Hashanah, which is the head of the year, all the days of the year and everything that happens in the year comes from the head of the year, which is Rosh Hashanah. Because the first formation is the head, and from it the limbs branch out. And like we said, the 248 limbs and organs are all included in a hidden way in the head from where they branch. And just as the physical form has its source in the head, so too the spiritual source is in the head and the brain. The move of a hand, for example, is included in the brain. How do I know how to move? Because my brain knows how to move. It's a spiritual potential in the brain. So too, every move of walking of the foot is included in the brain in a spiritual potential. And likewise, the function of all the limbs are included in the brain as their spiritual potential. So we see, we can understand from that, like it is in the person, so too in the world. From the spiritual potential in Rosh Hashanah comes out how every day in the world is going to have its vitality. And that's why the brain has the power to direct the limbs according to what it wants. It draws down the physical power and life force, which allows the limb to accomplish physically that which is directed to do by the brain. So too in the macrocosm on Rosh Hashanah. There is the spiritual potential on Rosh Hashanah to form the months of the year and their particular weeks, and in turn their particular days, which deliver the spiritual energy needed for the limbs that accomplish God's will throughout the year. For example, in a person, at the time a desire rises up in the brain to move the hand, the message travels through the nerve all the way down to the nerves of the hand from the brain to move in that specific way according to the desire of the brain. In the same way, the move of the foot and all the other organs come from the brain. So we're forced to say there's a general source for all these particular moves, which is the brain of the head. And since it's the beginning of a person's formation, like Rosh Hashanah is the beginning of the year, and it includes all of the limbs together, like we said, all included in the brain, in a spiritual way. And just like in us, in the earthly person, so too in the supernal man. Even though Hashem has no form of a body, nevertheless, he is described as having a form. Where do we see that? For example, the heaven, it says, is his throne, and the earth is his footstool. So we see there's a supernal man who sits on the throne and rests his feet on the footstool, which is the earth. So there's a contradiction. Hashem on one hand has no form, and the other hand is a guy, a man, sitting on the throne with his feet on the earth. The throne is the heaven, and the footstool is the earth. And we can answer that contradiction through the idea, from my flesh I will see God. In order for the Infinite One to connect with finite creatures, he dresses himself in a garment through which we can connect to him. So although Hashem has no limbs actually, he has no form actually, he emanates an attribute of kindness, which we call his right arm. He emanates an attribute of intelligence, we call his brain. The power of action we describe as his lower extremities. There's not a real arm and a head or extremities, just an anthropomorphic symbolic attribute through which the infinite can connect with limited creatures. And we in turn can connect with him. Now it sounds to me like we're ready to have a poem
Not great.
From the
with
great
some
and
music
famous
from the great and famous Jewish poet
Ionized.
upon Greece and many foe, stood between past and future, and were told what would befall. The Levites from the valley were
Hey-ya!
Back to you, Savo!
I'm told the lavalier is under my chair.
It is,
Yeah,
here we
there it
go.
is. Okay.
Chevy Cavalier is on your chair.
The cavalier. Not a cavalier, it's a lavalier.
Lavalier.
Okay, boys and girls. Now, that supernal man, those attributes of Hashem, goes through stages of development, which can be metaphorically understood by the development of a person. The head of the supernal man is formed anew every year on Rosh Hashanah. That's why Rosh Hashanah is called the head of the year. And when that happens is when Hashem is coronated as the king. In the supernal world of emanation, which is called the world of Exilus, symbolized by our old friend, the name Havaya Yudke Vavke, it is the palace, so to speak, of that supernal man on the throne. And its development, which includes vessels and lights, it develops through vessels and lights, like we develop as a body and a soul, can be understood through the metaphor of an earthly person. The coming into being of the physical body in the earthly person corresponds to the building of the vessels on the level of the supernal man. The vessels meaning the container that holds the light of kindness, the right arm, the container that holds the light of intellect, the brain, as explained in the Kabbalah book Eitz Chaim. The head and the crown, which are the vessels of that supernal man, is the object of our metaphor of how it is in a person. And that's why Rosh Hashanah is called the head of the year. And its spiritual component, the vessel component, is the crown and the head, and the spiritual component is illustrated by the example of our soul that enlivens the vessel of our body, which is the enlivening factor of the vessel of the head and crown of the supernal man. Up there, there's lights and vessels. The vessel is the head and the crown of the supernal man, and there's a spiritual light that fills those up and enlivens those vessels, that divine structure, like it says in Eitz Chaim, from the drops of the father and the mother being symbolized by the Yud of the Yud Kei Vav Kei and the Hey of the Yud Kei Vav Kei. The father and the mother are metaphors for the supernal wisdom and supernal understanding. And they are the spiritual head of that supernal man. And that is the spiritual form which is called in a person the soul. And in that supernal man, that spiritual element, that soul, is called light. In a person, the soul is also in the brain first. It's the drop that is drawn from the brain of the Father, which includes all the spiritual powers of the soul. So too, in the coming of being into the bodily limbs, our bodily limbs, and the leader of those limbs and the prime fundament is the brain. The first thing formed in the embryo in the womb of the mother is the head. Just like Rosh Hashanah is the head of the year. And focusing the microscope in a more detailed way, Hasidus explains that each man, whether the earthly man or the supernal man, contains three manifestations, three dimensions. There's the inner man, there's the outer man, and there's the middle man, which connects the inner man and the outer man. Similar to a person who's called Adam. Adam means man. The first man is named Adam. And that Adam contains two aspects. It's composed of an aleph, like an A, which is higher and aloof from the world, like the soul. And then it has a daled mem, which indicates blood. The aleph, the A, indicates the spiritual light of the person's soul, as it includes all of the potential for the physical powers, meaning sight and hearing, all the way down to walking. They're all included in potential in the soul of a person. And this soul level on the supernal man is called the level of lights, called the inner person. The middle person is the source of the 365 nerves and blood vessels in the earthly person. Like the nerves of the brain that we spoke about earlier, which connect the essential spiritual level of the soul to emerge as the life of the physical limbs from head to foot. In the macrocosm of the year on Rosh Hashanah, the middle connector level, the 365 nerves and ligaments equals the 365 days of the year, which is the level of time. In the year you have three things. You have time, the middle man. You have space, the outer man. And you have soul, the inner man. Space means the six directions, corresponding to the outer man, which is the 248 limbs and organs. And on both levels of a person, whether it's the godly person or the earthly person, there's an inner man and an outer man. And the brain of the head includes all, and from it branches out the particular powers to the particular limbs, seeing to the eyes and hearing to the ears. Only the inner man is a level of spirituality, it's a soul. And the outer man is physical. And each one depends on the other. And they're really a unified whole. So too on Rosh Hashanah. The spiritual soul of the year is one whole with the physical existence of the days of year. For example, when I get hungry, the spiritual dynamic that's taking place is that my soul wants to acquire the godly spark that's in that food. And that's why I physically feel hungry. Like the spiritual desire of the soul for a specific spark of godliness in a physical object. And that desire is unified in the vessel of the brain and the head to bring about the physical move to walk to the object which contains that godly spark, and then a message to the hand to pick it up, and the message to the lips to form and say the words of the blessing. I guess you didn't know that when you want a potato chip. There's a godly spark in there that your soul wants to acquire. So the head of a person is the general metaphor through which to understand the macrocosm of the life of the new year on Rosh Hashanah, called the head of the world. And this head of the world, the new year, contains three aspects. There's world, which is space, which is 6 directions. And that corresponds to the outer man. Then there is year, which is time, which corresponds to the middle man, the 365 nerves and ligaments. And then you have the soul, which is the inner man. But in our metaphor of a person, the soul is dressed in the physical limbs. But in the object of the metaphor, the head of the year, Rosh Hashanah, the limbs are angels, spiritual creatures. And they're the limbs of the godly indwelling manifestation called Shekhinah. Certain angels, for example, are called eyes of the Shekhinah. Others are called feet of the Shekhinah. Hashem's indwelling presence in the world is like the soul of those angelic limbs. Year, which is time, includes the 6,000 years of the world's existence. And in this specific year that's coming up, 5,780, the year will be broken into 365 days, which correspond to the middleman, the nervous system. So in effect, we have two heads, manifest and the head of the year. There's the head of the world, Rosh Hashanah, and there's the head of the godly man on the throne. And both are unified in the head, so to speak, of Hashem. This means that just like a person has a spiritual soul whose seat is in his brain, which is the source of all of his potential powers, so too does the world have a godly spiritual source for all of its revealed manifestations, and that spiritual source has its seat in the head of the year on Rosh Hashanah. And now I think Uncle Hershey wants to interview a 2,000-year-old couple. You ready, Uncle Hershey?
I'm always ready. You got the mic. The mic.
I might give you that mic.
Thank you, Mike.
Mendel,
You can
take-
have the
tell me,
puppet, but I don't know about the mic.
Mendel, take the mic to you, I'm telling you. How are we doing, all right?
Mind if I join the party?
Okay, it's time now for the Jewish Experience portion of the Gezintahait Street Show. And once again,
It's fun, right?
we're honored to have with us the 3,000-year-old puppet.
Not
You
mine,
got it,
no.
3,000-year-old puppet. Amazing, look at him.
Hey!
He's got
I look
cheeks.
3,000,
He's
yeah.
got cheeks, he's cheeks.
Yeah, I look 3,000
Look,
years
he's
old.
such a little puppet with his
You know,
puppet.
I don't look a day over 2,500.
I think you must be taken by the...
Oh, yeah. And I eat a lot of tomatoes. It's good for you.
Right. All right, so the Parsha this week is...
Savo.
Savo.
When you come to this land,
Right.
like those Meshuggahs from Gezintahait Street band was thinking, when you come to this land, I mean, this wasn't really
Keep in mind now,
this wasn't really a
every Parsha
song,
we read
it was noise,
is
but
Moshe
what do I
Rabbeinu
know?
trying to get the people ready to enter the land. Because they've been living in the Midbar under Hashem giving them everything. And when they come to the land, they're going to have to actually start doing some work here to get what they need. So to prepare for that, each one of these Parshas goes through portions that get the people ready. So, you ready?
Yes, I'm ready. So the first thing, I was there, Moshe.
All right.
The first thing in this parsha was that Moshe tells them that you must take in Eretz Yisrael, you're going to grow fruits.
Right.
It's not going to be like the midbar,
Right.
that the Abish is going to give you cotton
That's
candy,
right. You gotta go
etc.
out and actually do
Right,
it.
you gotta go do your own stuff.
Grow the fruits,
Yep.
and they gotta get ready to give the Bikurim.
Right. And it says you should
first
put it
fruits.
in a basket,
Right.
which is a
And they
funny
gotta give
thing.
it,
Why
who
in
they
a
give it
basket?
to?
They give it to they give it to the kohen.
Right.
But it's interesting, the basket, it says put the first fruit in the basket. The Lubavitcher Rebbe says something very interesting on this. He says that, what does it mean the first fruit? That a Jew doing a mitzvah, right? This is called the first fruit, right? Because what was the Eibishter when God made the world?
Right.
Right? What was his first intention? Even though on this oit, the last thing we do is the mitzvah. It's after all the levels, and this is the lowest royal. But really, that lowest royal was the first thing in God's intention, was that we should do a mitzvah. And so, how does this happen? It's just very important, because this can only happen when this first food, the soul, is in a basket, is in a human body. When you get my age, it's given in a basket case. You know? Anyways, so that's the first thing it says.
Just keep in mind, 3,000 years, you could have gotten Kedukas at Afghanistan. And you didn't.
Oh, by the way, don't laugh, because in a little bit in this parsha, oh boy, it talks about all kinds of Kedukas.
I know, we don't want to talk about
Oh yeah,
that, right?
but we'll talk about that parsha
Yeah.
quietly.
We're going to talk about it very quietly.
Yeah, we'll talk about it quietly.
Right.
Anyways, the next thing, it talks about also collecting all the different tithes and the different things we have to, all the charity, we have to give charity.
No, it's very important for a couple of reasons. One of the main reasons is that Levium and the Kohanim, they didn't have a portion in the land. They depended upon the people tithing to them to keep them going. I mean, they're providing an incredible spiritual service, but they have to be covered for that, and they have to be able to take care of their families.
Yeah, it's kind of like today. There's politicians. The only difference is they don't provide any service.
They just take the money and run.
Anyways, the next thing is interesting, because it says, "Hashkifa mimayim kotchecha min hashamayim uvorisam Israel." Look down, right?
Yeah.
Look down from the heavens and bless your nation, Israel.
Right.
Right? It's interesting, because the question is, first of all, why it has to say both? We know, right? Of course, we know that who's your nation? Your nation is Israel, right?
That's right.
This is your nation, right? Hoishi?
That's it.
What do you think?
I think.
Anyways, not only this, but why it says also it should say first Israel and then your people. You know why? Because who's Israel? Israel talks about Talmidei Chachamim, the people who are great scholars.
That's right.
And people means like me and you, Hoishi.
Yeah.
Well, like me, anyways. Simple people, right? So it should say maybe first the scholars, first Israel, and then the people.
Right.
But it shows us that sometimes the mitzvah, simple mitzvah done by simple people, this is the real importance. So this is why it puts it first. Yeah.
It reveals it even at that level. It's an
Yeah.
incredible thing.
And anyways, then Moshe, he's finishing talking to them, and he tells them about to make sure to keep Hashem's commandments.
Sure.
And then, of course, he gives them the instructions that when they will cross the Yarden, that they have to remember, right? They cross the Jordan River to go into Israel, to remember all the things that God did for them, and remember that they have to keep Torah and mitzvahs, right?
The thing is, when they keep the Torah and mitzvahs, they get such a power that they can do anything. They can take over any
Anything.
people, and everybody, the whole world becomes
Yeah.
their servants.
Yeah, like a
But
puppet doing mitzvahs can
on
live
the
to
other
3,000
hand-
years old.
On the other hand, if they don't listen to Hashem, they're no different than the rest of the people. So
Right.
Hashem turns on them, and they better.
Oh, yeah, and that's the next part. The next part was they put the Shvatim and they put them on different mountains,
That's
and
right.
they gave the blessings and the curses.
That's right.
And if you do what Hashem wants you, you will get all the blessings. If not,
And
like
that's
Rashi
the-
says, you'll get the kaduchis and all this other
Chas
stuff.
v'shalom.
God forbid,
Right.
right? And but also it's very important to note all the blessings for doing all the mitzvahs, right? Because if you do all the mitzvahs, it's going to be very good for you.
Big
You'll have a
time.
lot of schmaltz herring.
Big time.
By the way, that's the secret to getting old like me. Eat a lot of schmaltz herring.
That'll
Keeps
give
you
that'll
young.
give your insides kedukas.
Oh yeah, but outside, look at me. It's great.
That's right. On the outside, they look good.
Yeah.
That's-
Anyways, so this is one interesting thing it says here also is it says because one of the reasons for the problems is because you did not serve the Eibishter, you did not serve God with joy and gladness
That's
of heart.
another thing. You can do the mitzvahs if you got to do them b'simcha.
Yeah, and the Rebbe talks about this and he says that if do as Hashem b'simcha,
Right.
serve Hashem with happiness is always a thing, but now the focus has to be on it bringing Mashiach. And he says just like Hasidus, when first it was Hasidim.
Right.
Of course, this concept of Mashiach was always in their minds, but it wasn't like the main part of their work.
Right.
They was refining themselves,
Right.
refining the people
Right.
around them.
Now we.
But now, right now, it's time for Mashiach.
Polished and everything's done, and we're ready.
So the focus
Right.
is especially Hasidus in order to bring Mashiach.
Right.
And the same thing is he says we have to do with the Simcha. It's not just enough just Simcha, but it should be Simcha in the bringing of Mashiach.
Right.
And this is the avodah from today.
Understood.
Anyways, what else we talk about? Anyways, after all this, Moshe gives a final thing he says, and he tells all of them that you see what God did for you. He took you out of the Mitzrayim, the Mitzrayim,
If
and
you lower the low,
hey, Leib,
you took him into
Leib.
the high of the high.
Leib, keep it down. Keep it down. You know what that is? You know what keep it down? It's short for keep it down, you mishuganer. I'm telling you, Heishi, these people, it's like, you know, they're like 300 years old,
I
you know?
know.
Like, you
Just
can't deal with
getting
these
underway.
300 years old.
They're just
They're like
getting
little
underway.
kinderlach.
Baby.
Anyways, and
we
it
don't
says
wanna
you will.
talk about that.
Anyways, it says, and you will go into Eretz Yisrael. What's the main thing? Do what the Eibishter tells you, and everything will be good.
Amen.
That's this
That's the
part.
bottom line. I mean, that's big stuff.
The main thing.
I'm glad you laid down the other stuff, because if we're gonna do this.
Yeah, we don't like to talk about
We're
this
not
stuff.
gonna deal with the other side, because we don't have to, because we're gonna do Torah.
But it's interesting because now
That's the
we're
main
coming to
thing.
Mashiach.
Everybody needs to understand and do Torah mitzvahs, and stay away from all the other stuff, and stay only with the good stuff.
Just do the good
Good
stuff.
news, good times, simcha. So
Amen.
that's what we're all about.
All right, what are we holding now?
We're back.
Is he ready even? This
Back.
Back to
To
you,
you,
Bin
Bin
Saleh.
Saleh.
Thanks so much,
All right.
Hoshi. It's always so
Thanks so
good to
much
talk
to
to
you. It's
you.
great once
You
again.
keep me young,
to
Hoshi.
spend the time, and you keep me getting gedukas. But
Well.
Anyway, hang in there, because we got a lot more to do.
All right, next
All
week,
right.
Hoshi.
That's it. All right, it's all yours.
Until next time.
Hey.
I think that one was pretty good.
It didn't hurt too much, huh?
All right.
So like we said, there's two heads on Rosh Hashanah. There's the head of the godly man and there's the head of the year. And each one has three dimensions. Space is the 6 directions of the world. And year, there's 12 months. Broken up, each one into 30 days. And each adding up to 365 days. Then there's the soul, which is the spiritual life force, which animates all those days and directions. So since Rosh Hashanah is the head and source of the spiritual life force of each day and each minute of the coming year, it's very important on the day of Rosh Hashanah to devote every moment to bond with Hashem, and especially connected with hearing the shofar. Everybody make sure that you get to a shul and you hear the shofar. And if you don't know how to get to a shul, call up the Chabad rabbi in your neighborhood, and he'll tell you how to either get to a shul or he'll send somebody to you. And the shofar is very important. It gives Hashem delight, and when he hears it, he agrees to be our king for another year.
If you don't know who the Chabad rabbi in your neighborhood is, go to Chabad.org.
You can look it up on
CHABAD.org. It has a listing of all the Chabad rabbis everywhere.
And just remember, since Rosh Hashanah is the head of the whole world, and everybody knows that a small scratch in the brain can negatively affect the whole body and the life of the person, so too on the head of the year. It contains the source of flow for all spiritual and physical benefits of the whole year. But coming back to Chai Elul, the birthday of the Alter Rebbe and the Baal Shem Tov, is even a more vital level than what's accomplished on Rosh Hashanah. It is the vitality that's brought into Torah and Mitzvot through learning and bringing into practice Hasidic values. And their beginning, we commemorated yesterday on Chai Elul, which was the birthday of the Baal Shem Tov and the Alter Rebbe. It's not a level of particular vitality, like the revealed vitality of the body, which flows to the limbs from the brain, like space and time. It's not even an all-encompassing vitality, which is the soul of the year, like on Rosh Hashanah. But that vitality in Chai Elul, that life from Chai Elul, is an essential life, higher and removed a vitality which does not spread out to enliven, but is only the essential connection of a person to Hashem himself, the level of Yechida of the Neshama, whose revelation is through Chassidus, and whose birth was yesterday on Chai Elul. And now I think we're going to have a niggun
Yeah.
from the boys. Rachamana.
Rachamana. Where's
Oh, this is Messy Shabbos. This is it.
yeah,
This is Shabbos.
we start
Shabbos.
with so
We go to Shabbos.
The song that we're going to play now is, we all get together at 1 o'clock in the morning on Saturday night, and we say, excuse me to Hashem for any moves that we may have made. And by the end of it, everybody dances around in a circle around the bima
770 dance for hours.
to this tune.
okay. Let me hear your volume here.
2 and 4 and.
Okay, now we're gonna have our sign-off song. Everybody ready?
Ready, ready?
Da, da, da,